Mr. Justin Underwood, thank you for giving me the privilege for us to sit down and talk about a wide variety of things. But one of the things I'd like to focus on is your YouTube channel and kind of how that came to be. And I know that there's a beginning. You and I first met, believe that you were an appraiser. I got in the business in 06. You got your appraiser's license in 07, started appraising, real estate license around the same time.
Correct.
And we got to know each other fairly early on.
Yeah.
And why don't you take the ball from there and run with
it? You and I have been around long enough that, we had to go to offices to pick up keys to show homes. We had to use binders and magazines to get information, right? And you had to get your information turned in for your ads a month early, so it would be printed, right?
That's correct. So there was no put the house on the market and everybody knew about it.
Right, yeah.
Same day. And if you wanted to take a digital picture, you had to use the cameras had the 3.5-inch disc to go into it.
Look, you and I have been around long enough that I want to make a shadow box of the tools I used to use in the industry. Because now a razor phone is archaic, right?
Right.
And the first guy I worked with was still using almost like a disc that he put into a camera and would have to upload into.
Yeah, that's that 3.5-inch floppy disk.
And I just missed though the appraisers who would get their film developed and then glue it into the report. So thank God I missed that. But
some of the agents were still using beepers. They had beeper numbers on some of the signs. So thank goodness we're not having to do that anymore.
Yeah, that's another conversation for another day. Yeah. I'd love to have it because it is a fun time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talk to us a little bit about a little bit about your career. Mm-hmm. Leading up to the kind of the main thing is kind of how you got involved in YouTube.
Yeah, how did I get involved in YouTube? That's really the question. So, real estate plays a big role in that because social media played a role in it. I opened up a company called Movement Mortgage here locally. Back that would have been January of 2016. January of 2016, Facebook was a big deal already, right? But it wasn't seen as a place for business. It was really still personal at that time. I mean, the question I think that you were asking, what are you doing, or what's on your mind, like whatever. Like people were focused on that type of post for Facebook, and as someone who was young and didn't have a lot of money to invest in helping people know who this company was, Movement was a national company, but primarily on the West and East Coast. I had opened the first offices in North Louisiana, and people just didn't even understand what I would say. I'd say, "Hey, I'm Justin Underwood. I'm with Movement Mortgage," and they're like, "Momentum Mortgage?" You're like, it was really tough because most people saw their all of their financial needs done at big banks or local personal banks.
Things have been well established.
Yeah, and an independent mortgage bank at the time was not as widely as accepted as it kind of is today.
Now, backing up just a little bit to just kind of set the stage, you were very successful already in the mortgage business.
Yeah, I was, and I appreciate you saying that. But what I wanted to connect to something that only had my name attached to it, because I really wanted to prove to be frank, people like Origin Bank, where I work now, I wanted to prove to them that I had what it takes, because they saw me as an appraiser, which you mentioned earlier. Some people saw me as a realtor, which was more of a part-time thing. I was primarily an appraiser as a professional, and I was still blazing this path as a mortgage banker, and I wanted to prove that I could do it at a high level, and leadership was a big part of that. So I wanted to create an environment where I had that. But the way this plays into the YouTube story is I started doing social media posts, primarily Facebook. And it was, to say it was pioneering, it would be true here. My first Facebook Live was January of 2017. Now, to think about that 7 years ago, people still are afraid to do Facebook Live today.
I am. I mean, and I've been doing these podcasts for about a little over a year now, but still, just to be able to hit that button and you go live. If you ever had time, just ask Alex, how many takes do I have to do on just a 30-second clip? He's going like, I don't even want to talk about it.
Well, just
it's just a nerve-wracking.
Look, I had a suit on. I had watched a video on how to do Facebook Live. I had put Do Not Disturb signs on the door of my conference room. 3 hours later, I had chickened out, and I said, I'm just going to record it. But I had been challenged by a dear friend of mine named Christy Wheeler to go live. And I really wanted to honor that request. And we had both committed to do it by the end of January. And it's literally like January 31st. Okay. So I'm one more day and I can't honor my word. And I eventually just stripped off the coat. I deleted my script because it was horrible. Did 3 bullet points and went live. Within a very short period of time, it had over 3,000 views, and Movement called and told me to take it down because it was out of compliance. But it worked. And it was a big moment for me. And so I began to push my business onto Facebook as a platform, to the point that I eventually was called by a local competitor Loud and Fancy. And I was like, hey, it's working. You know, people are paying attention.
When your competitors start talking about you, you know you're doing something right.
And so it was working. But for me, Facebook was free. And that was also a big part of it. But I had this thing inside of me, and it comes from the fact that when I was really young, 18 to 21, 22, I was working for General Motors, and I went into work one day and they said, go home and don't ever come back. We're literally taking the plant to Mexico. True story. That has birthed in me this desire to constantly be evolving and make sure I don't get caught in a situation where things change so drastically and I have no plan and no preparation. Right. And so I always want to be, as much as I can, wisely be at the forefront of something, not on the back end of something. Well, all of a sudden now my competitors are on Facebook, and now they're attempting to do Facebook in the same way. And now it's, now it's commonplace to see professionals out in the public on social media doing things, whether it be charitable, whether it be personal, whatever. Right. And this has happened many times. And I could give you those examples later, but fast forward, leave Movement Mortgage, which was a company that for the most part was a social media driven company. They really also leaned into social media heavily, to go to Origin Bank. And it's a very different company. Okay. But we're talking about
so you're moving from something that was very progressive and trying to be on the cutting edge, leading in areas, to back to a brick and mortar that was still used to doing things just the way they've always done things.
It's interesting because, life has a way of being like a pendulum that swings to extremes often, right? It's hard for me not to go to mortgage. I don't want to lose the audience because we want to get to YouTube, but there's a time when depository lenders were the king, and then a time when they were not due to CFPB, and then the pendulum swings back the other way. And you got to be in tune with that, right? And how best to serve your customers, how best to fit into an organization, be able to perform and provide. But social media is something that was becoming a little more comfortable to bigger banks, right? Or to more depository lenders who have, perceived more like scrutiny in terms of the way that they're audited. However, for me, it was not so much about that. It was more about, okay, if everyone's doing it, then no one's doing it. It's really that mindset that I have. And so what is going to be the next way to reach the people that align for me? And that's a part of it, is realizing that when I'm putting out social media content, I'm not actually trying to reach everyone. That's just unrealistic, number one.
Sure.
And if everyone called me, I wouldn't enjoy my job because not everyone's for everyone, so to speak. So I started leaning into my own personality, and my own personality goes back to my childhood. I'm a twin. I have a twin brother named Dustin. He's 30 minutes younger than me, and I like to joke that I was born with my competition. I think we helped each other grow up in a lot of ways. And we had what I think most people would consider a childhood you wouldn't sign your kids up for, pretty unstable. By the time I finished ninth grade, I'd been to 7 different schools, 3 states, moved around a lot, multiple, my parents were married multiple times, all that kind of great stuff. Or not great stuff, however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
But my brother and I built a bond around Marvel. Marvel being X-Men, Spider-Man, those kind of things. Particularly in the early 90s. Brian, you and I are pretty close to age, but in 1992, you had something called X-Men, the animated series, which made a big splash. That was very popular. So in 94, they did a Spider-Man animated series. And during those times, trading cards and action figures, along with comic books, were a big part of that. And so that was a bright spot in our childhood. And that has always been kind of underneath the facade of what people got to see of me. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to start leaning into my own personality. I'm not going to just keep this kind of dormant and hidden. And before then, though, I have to tell you, in 2018, we had just finally got to a place as a family where there was money at the end of the month.
Sure.
You know, beyond what my wife and 2 daughters needed. And we had also begun building a house. And my wife, she would say, Justin, this nerdy stuff cannot be in the house. It's got to be in your closet or in the attic. It can't be visible. I don't want anybody to see it. And that had always been true. But when we were getting ready to build a house, I said, look, I want a room. I just want it to be my room. And it's going to have stuff in there that you don't really care to see because she's not into that kind of stuff. But it'll have a door. So you can shut it anytime you don't want to see it, right? And we had a nice little agreement. So I started, tapping back into some of my things that I enjoyed as a kid, along with my brother, who at the time owned a comic book shop locally. Well, I opened up an Instagram account called Spidey Jew 09. SPIDEYJEU, which is my initials, Justin Edward Underwood, and 09 to be exact, because I'm born September 9th. So I thought I'll just do this like gamer tag. No one will be able to find me locally. I'll post my little nerdy stuff. I won't put my face in it, and that'll be my outlet. Well, fast forward, we're in our home. I've been having a good time picking up these collectibles and things that I enjoy.
Because now you can display them. You got your own spot.
It's really about displaying for me.
Yeah.
And there's reasons for that, but it's not just like hoard it and stick it and, treasure it in some, bookshelf or binder or something like that.
You want to enjoy it.
I want to see it. I want to appreciate and enjoy it. Almost like I told Jamie, I want to have a library that a toy room threw up in. Yeah. And just a mix of books and toys and things like that. Well, 2020 starts to roll around. I'm now at Origin, and I'm rethinking through how do I build a brand now when if I scroll through social media, I'm seeing my competitors and the way that they're showing up. How do I want to show up different in the marketplace? And at that point in time, I was like, I think long form media is probably it.
Yeah.
Something that will live longer. It won't be consumed in a day and then gone forever, that it could be revisited. It could be a source of information, education, things of that nature. So I was like, podcast, YouTube is probably the space for that.
Right.
And it horrified me because it wasn't the same thing as posting a picture or even doing a quick Facebook Live. The idea of audio, editing, how to even upload on YouTube.
Yeah, because there's a lot that goes into that. It's not just record, post, and go. I mean, there's back end stuff that a lot of people don't realize that has to go on.
And I wanted, I was just scared. Long story short, I was scared. I bought some equipment and those kind of things, and really sat in the corner because then March of 2020 happened, and I literally worked 16 hours a day, 6 days a week for 7-9 months, whatever it was. And I went, so this is 2020. It's October 1st. I had planned a trip to go hiking in the Grand Canyon. When I say hiking, I went North Rim to South Rim.
Wow.
Utah to Arkansas. That's a long way. Utah to Arizona in one day, 28 miles. Got on the helicopter, flew me over the Grand Canyon, dropped me off, and I hiked all the way back to the South Rim in one day, 28 miles. Came home, picked up. I was tired of staying at home, so I wanted to get out and see nature. I came home for 2 days. Didn't tell anybody I was actually home. Picked up my girls, took them to Disney because they didn't see me all summer. I mean, I was buried in a computer the whole summer. I come home and I told Jamie, I said, you know what? I'm deleting my email off my phone. Actually, I had done that on October 1st. I was not putting it back on my phone. And I'm starting the YouTube channel. But I'm still too scared to do it mortgage related. So I'm going to use this little hidden Spidey G09, name, and I'm gonna start it with that.
So, but at this time, that Instagram account that you created, what kind of following did you have by that time? So we got maybe a year and a half, 2 year span.
Maybe 100, 200 people.
But you were interacting with folks on it. You wouldn't interact.
No, I was hidden.
So you would just post on it, and it's out there. Maybe had 100, 150 followers.
Yeah, it was mainly like photography.
Okay.
And I just chose to use that Instagram name as the YouTube name because I already had it.
But you didn't have much activity on Instagram.
Correct. And it was meant to be anonymous to some degree. Now, obviously, when you point the camera at your face on YouTube, it's not anonymous. But my first video, I go, hey, everybody, I'm Spidey G09, and I hope you're having a marvelous day. Literally my first video, and that's how I introduced myself. But the point was, I was committed to doing 35 videos. I'm gonna upload 35 videos, and at the end of the 35th video, I will know how to do audio, I'll know how to do lighting, I'll know how to upload more than I do now, and enough to be able to go to the professional side of my life and start producing content at that point in time. Well, what happened next, I couldn't have predicted. Within, I don't know, maybe 20 videos, January, whatever January is, I get a call from my brother. He's like, man, Marvel Trading Cards is having a little bit of a moment. And they were selling for quite a bit of money on eBay is what it was. And I was like, really? Well, come over. He came over and I had him sit down and we started going through our old trading cards. And a number of those cards were some of the ones that were selling for a lot of money. So I immediately just hit record and we made a video about Marvel cards. Well, they say in YouTube, you either want to be first, the best, or different.
Right.
At this point in time, I happened to be first. Not the first one to make a video about Marvel cards, but the first one who made consistent, regular content about Marvel trading cards.
Okay.
So if you're confused, think baseball cards, but Marvel, right? And they actually have, quite a storied history, and there's quite a bit of importance that they have in the space not only of trading cards but of collectibles already. Very much connected to Stan Lee and things like that. Okay, well, so my channel began to represent this kind of phenomenon that was happening, which was, primarily men. There's females there too, but primarily men who are around the age of 40, reconnecting to the things that they enjoyed in their past. Now that happened at a really large scale during COVID, and Marvel cards was a part of that. And so as I would post a video, and I'm kind of getting reinvigorated into the Marvel trading card space, I'm also discovering that even though I stopped collecting in '96 when I discovered females, like a lot of young men at that time, those cards continued to be produced even throughout the 2000s and some really special stuff. And so as I'm discovering it, I'm doing it on video. I'm pressing record. Well, so that's January. By May, I had acquired what many people would consider the most valuable Marvel trading card. It's called the Gold One-of-One Spider-Man. It's called a precious metal gem, or a PMG. Just to put it in perspective, the first precious metal gems or PMGs that came out were in 96, 97. Kobe Bryant's rookie year, Michael Jordan's still playing. A low grade of one of those can still sell, they're out of 10. A low grade of those can still sell up to over $1 million.
Wow. So
the Gold One-of-One Spider-Man is a dream card, especially for someone who's a Spider-Man fan.
Sure.
And I had, serendipitously was already branding myself as a Spider-Man guy through Spidey G09. And I picked him because he's my favorite, right? And so now all of a sudden, do I have the most videos of Marvel cards?
Right.
I now have the biggest card, and whether you like it or not, it creates a clout in the space. So from nobody to somebody in a span of 5 months in that trading card space. And so that means people in the industry or various people start reaching out. By the end of the year, I'm being contacted by Golden Auctions and Netflix about being on a series with them to do. In fact, they have the series out right now. It's called The Golden Touch. And so it was just a whirlwind of things that I had never anticipated ever happening with the channel. And at that point, I did start doing long form content in 2021, I started doing local wisdom. So that's where that was born out of.
So let's back up just a little bit. When you acquired the Golden Gem card, that was in 21.
That was May of 21.
Okay, so getting us to that point, there's a lot of things that probably took place from end of, last quarter of 2020, and then through the first quarter of 21.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about that space of learning and growing. What did that look like to you? So sounds like your first 30 days of doing it was not a whole lot happening, but in January 21, things started turning for you.
Yeah.
So that 3-month span, talk to me about that.
The first thing that happened was the realization that being in creation is really important to me. I love the idea of putting something into the world that was not there when I woke up that morning. It's got an element of faith in it that's really important to me. It's an element of work that's really important to me. And that was energizing. The second part was that the editing process was something that actually is therapeutic for me. Sitting down, editing, that creative process is something that I look forward to at the end of the day, where I think that's a struggle for many people who want to be on YouTube. They like what YouTube represents. They like what it might create for them, but the actual creative process is not something that they enjoy. If that makes sense.
Well, do you think it's not that they don't enjoy it, or they're not willing to put the work into figuring it out?
If you're a perfectionist and you want it to be perfect, it becomes such a paralyzing aspect of it. And then that becomes the reason why you haven't figured it out, because you haven't perfected it, right? And I held on to a couple of beliefs. Number one was just be in creation, act now, perfect later. We've all heard that, and I just really embraced that when it came to the YouTube content, because I didn't want it to prevent me from putting out and honoring my commitment of 35 videos.
Right.
And I began to realize that it's actually you have some amazingly produced content that's on YouTube that has less than 100 views.
Right.
That's not really why people choose to watch or not watch, or to engage with something. So for me, I was like, okay, if there's this bell curve, right? And the bell curve is you've got your fans, like the people who just love whatever it is you're creating, whatever it is you're putting out there. They're pro Brian or pro Justin. And then you have your haters, right, on the other end of that bell curve. And it doesn't matter what you do. They're just not a fan. They just won't enjoy it. And then you have this like bell curve in the middle, and the bell curve in the middle has these people who are kind of skeptical. They're like, I don't know if it's okay to like somebody like Justin or Brian. I need some reassurances that.
But they want to engage enough to try to figure it out.
Then they're aware of you, right? And then you have the people who don't know anything. They don't even know you exist. And that's the other half of the bell curve, right? I said, you know what? I'm just going to focus on my fans, the people who they're here because they enjoy who I am as a person and what I, exhibit naturally and authentically. So I don't have to like work it up all the time. And I'm going to focus on the things that I enjoy that they enjoy, which is very specifically Marvel trading cards.
Right.
And what began to happen is those people started telling these people about it.
Mm.
And then those people went, oh, it is okay. It is okay to like Marvel cards.
Right.
It is okay to like that content. And I call it kind of like my foundational subscribership. I was like, I'm going to just focus on building that as naturally as possible without any gimmicks, giveaways and whatever. Like I'm just going to really focus on them authentically hitting subscribe and watching and engaging. And the other thing was responding to every comment that came in, I responded to it, whether it was.
So a couple things I want to tap into this. We'll set some context here real quick, just so people understand kind of where I'm coming from on question. You came from very humble beginnings. Very humble beginning. I won't go any more than that.
Yeah, I was a trailer park kid. It's just a reality.
So humble beginnings. During this time that you're talking about, this time frame, real estate got crazy during that time frame. the average home that would hit the market would have multiple offers on it.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to make sure during that time that everybody's finance was rock solid, because we're not accepting an offer unless we had something rock solid. So this time frame that you're describing, business was crazy. Your profession was providing for your family was through the roof crazy. Some of the best times financially that all of us have had or seen coming from real estate, the activity. And then on top of that, you've got this outlet that you're trying to push forward in for an area of, if I'm hearing you correct, from a little bit of professional growth, but also something that just interests you, and you just wanted to see if you could do it and make it happen. So knowing all those factors, when you started going with this 35 days leading into January, if you had not seen the growth by that time, do you still think you would have pressed forward as hard as you did with all of the extra time? Because you were busy in your normal job, and
closed 285 loans that year.
And this was just that much more on top of you learning something that can be complex when it comes to the editing and things. And you're kind of a perfectionist. You want things to be right.
Right, you do.
When you put it out there. So do you think you would have continued had you not started getting the positive feedback and start seeing some growth, that there's something here?
I would have continued making content. It would have not been as significantly in my hobby. My hobby was that thing that's for me that is last in line, right? And the reality is it was last in line then too. So I had already begun learning some things from a performance standpoint that I was able to implement day one with YouTube. And it's probably very connected to the success. One is it had to stay in alignment for what it is that I'm committed to. It could not get out of alignment, because then you can't perform. I had to have a cadence about it. It had to fit into the flow of my life. Example, there are some really good editing tools that you can do on a traditional laptop or desktop computer. I do 100% of my editing on my phone. Mm-hmm. And I do that, and I've stayed committed to that because I have to do it on the go or in my bed at night. I have too full of a life and too much that's required to me. Otherwise, for it to be this thing, I have to go sit my butt in a chair and dedicate an hour to it. I have to do it on the move and on the go. And so I maintain that alignment, maintain those commitments, and work to stay in a cadence of how it fit into everything else I had going on. To your point, I have a family to take care of, a tremendous amount of clients and referral partners to take care of who didn't want to hear, hey, you're busy because you're doing this YouTube thing over here.
And you're very active with your family. Your girls, we're constantly involved, and still to this day, very, very active family life, and being able to squeeze all of that in and still keep your sanity. I think it speaks a lot to who you are as a person, that you're goal driven, you're dedicated to the process. And I think for a lot of people, they think starting something out, everything's going to be easy and we're going to make things happen. You didn't go into this saying that I'm going to start a career and I'm going to leave real estate, leave mortgages so that I can be a YouTube star. But what you've created is just put you on a path that has opened so many doors. So take us from January, break down a little bit through that first quarter and how you were able to build. How many subscribers do you think you had in that January to that first quarter?
600 probably, somewhere around that number in that first quarter.
So 600.
And something to keep in mind as we talk about numbers and views and things that are moving forward, the Marvel trading card space at this time, the largest social media group in the world for Marvel trading cards, had about 2,500 people in it.
Okay.
So we're not talking about there's millions and millions of people doing this, like say Pokemon or Magic the Gathering or baseball cards or basketball. It's a very small, tight niche, which also, if you want to talk about YouTube success, a niche within a niche is really a part of that, by the way.
Yes.
That's proven out.
But also it's important to understand that when we're talking about the success of what you created, it's not just about the numbers. Mm-hmm. It's also about the connections that have been made through the process, right?
Yeah. So, you know me, Brian. The viewers may not know me. I'm a people-driven person.
Yeah.
The Lord's been very kind to me. Scripture says clearly that he who is forgiven much loves much, and I'm in the love much part category because I've been forgiven so much. And I developed this kind of these guidelines for myself personally in this space. Number one, you got to love people. That's number one. And I'll often say people are greater than cards, and that's what the content's about. Number two, you got to love Marvel cards, and that focuses in the conversation and who what I'm about and what I'm presenting. And number three, you have to keep it marvelous. I wanted the content to be a place that anyone could stumble in on it and I not be embarrassed or ashamed if my nephews or my daughters watch it. Things can turn into locker room talk so quickly, especially in our age range. It's just unfortunately true. So I was like, and that's just not who I am.
Yeah, but you have to make sure you have the guardrails that are set up and going into it knowing that, I mean, something we just have to protect ourselves from.
100%. The other part was this. This space had been hidden from really 1996 until 2020 because there was an effort by a group of people to keep it hidden. And I didn't like that. I don't like the idea of ponding, where you like hold it all to yourself and you hoard it all to yourself.
I'd call it silos. Like
silos.
Everybody has their one thing and they're so protective of it. I don't want you to kind of come into my world.
Exactly. And look, there's well-meaningness around it. Like, hey, we don't want somebody to come in and mess this up.
Right.
Like, we got it good. Don't mess it up. But I think life happens more like a river when you let things pass through you and go on somewhere else to someone else, right? Like, to me, that's more of just how I want to live. And I think it's more in line with who I am as a Christian. And so I showed up and I was like, man, there's a lot of like really dominant people and personalities who are able to just gather and gather and gather and gather. I don't want that. I want that for them. It just shouldn't be that easy. Right. And so have you ever seen the video, how the wolves changed Yellowstone National Park?
Yes, I have.
And so I had recently been shown that video when I got hired at Origin, because frankly, they said, Justin, you're going to be a wolf. And if you haven't seen the video, you may be like, wolves are negative. Trust me, I get it. I felt the same way when they told me that. But if you watch the video, you understand is that it helps create a healthy ecosystem when you have something that is a force of nature, a healthy force of nature. And I was like, this stuff's been hidden. I'm just going to shine light on it. And by shining light on it, it will help create a more natural ecosystem inside of that hobby and space. And that also means that some people are not going to like that. And so I had to learn how to deal with the fact that there were some people who would say, well, his motives is this and his motives is that. He's really about this. He's really about that. And have to check myself, what am I really about? Am I really committed to what I view as a leadership role in this space because I'm willing to press record and point a camera at my face, And to do that, it's to know, okay, maybe the Lord has me here for a reason. If so, I want to honor that. And number two, just because I hit record doesn't make me somebody. I'm just like the other collector.
Yeah.
I just happened to point a camera at my face. And so I just kind of kept that mentality about it as I move forward and as I move forward and as I move forward. And by the end of 2021, I hit 1,000 subscribers that September, right around my birthday, because it was a whole kind of celebration about it. And that was a big deal. I'd worked really hard for that 1,000 subscribers. In the YouTube world, that means you're monetized now. And it has it just has an impact when you can see 1K subscribers and people are considering if they should watch the video. Now, remember, during all of this time, YouTube is changing their algorithm where subscribers mean less and less and less in terms of your videos being suggested from a viewership standpoint. Yep. So I'm learning those things as well.
It's about watch time. It's about
click-through rate, watch time, engagement. Through
that whole first year, though, 1,000 subscribers. To me, I'm nowhere near, engaging near as much as what you are with people. but that engagement of where people are leaving comments and you can reply back to them, how rewarding is that?
It's dangerous, actually. It's dangerous because it can be a dopamine hit where you're like, oh, somebody said they like that. Somebody enjoyed this aspect of it. Somebody said they want to see more of this. And so there was the commitment to engage from a community building standpoint, to educate, and then there's the, okay, Justin, you need to be mindful of,
sure,
if you start chasing the dopamine hit here, what is it in exchange of?
Sure, but we don't want to miss the point with what's, I guess more of the point I was trying to make is that not that you need validation for what you're doing, but it is validating that you are on the correct path with engagement, so that you know that, okay, what I'm doing is resonating, whether it's resonating in good ways or bad ways.
Right.
I'm resonating with people. I'm just not getting people to hit a button. When people engage in your content, healthy engagement, it really gives you a lot more credibility within YouTube to be able to do more and get exposed to more people.
100%. I mean, it's so interesting how we see numbers, right? Like, if I were to hold an event here in Ouachita Parish where you and I reside, and 500 people showed up, and I then got to engage personally with all 500, that would be massive, right? People would say that was a miss on YouTube.
Yes.
And it's important for me to constantly remember, like, each person that chose to tune in is a human who has value, and they matter. Like, they really matter. And so and that helps me, like, not overreact to whatever the views may or may not be.
Yeah. And I think that's, when you look at, I'm very big on numbers, and we put this podcast on Spotify and other places, but also on YouTube. And my initial thought process on this is, we got to have so many viewers to watch it. Well, the content that I'm trying to put out here is about what makes our community great. And I lost sight in the very beginning, saying, well crud, I only got 61 views on this, and this one only hit 100 people. Instead of thinking that my goal for what I'm trying to put out there is, if I get 5 people that are bought in on the story that I'm telling here, that's a home run. That's 5 more people that can go out and tell the story that we're talking about. So I think it's very, I think it's important to people when they start talking about the online space. You got to know where your goals are at and what you're trying to achieve, or you will get caught up in looking at the numbers and measuring yourself to what others. So I think it's great for you to understand that every person is a person, and that it's not about the huge, massive numbers. It's about you're building a community.
And to your point of building a community, there was a point where, so we're 2024 now, so this 2022. There was a point where the questions and the engagement was too much, because I rebranded. As I said, I was looking to be anonymous, right? And I was operating as Spidey G09, not as Justin Underwood. And then, I got invitations to go meet some celebrities and things like that, and some stuff was happening, and I was attempting to kind of keep that on the down low here in North Louisiana, because I was concerned that people would say, oh, well, people have this, it drives me insane. People tell me I'm too busy all the time, and I absolutely despise it. And I was like, oh, and if they find out I'm doing YouTube, they'll think I'm even more too busy. And I just know how to structure my life for you, for me, like for us together. And so I was keeping it hidden. Well, something that I did ended up showing up in Yahoo News, IGN, which is a big entertainment space, places that put out breaking news regarding entertainment, particularly movies and TV shows. Well, I got to interview a man by the name of Eric Leadwall and Julia Leadwall, who were the producers and showrunner and writer for X-Men the Animated Series that I enjoyed so much as a kid. And the reason I got them on the channel is they actually use Marvel trading cards as a source material for writing the episodes. They would hire a writer, because they worked on shows that you may remember, like Chip and Dale, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they had done other cartoons leading up to X-Men, the animated series, but they were not necessarily, savants in the lore of comics.
Right.
So they would buy these box of trading cards, and on the back of every trading card, it would have stats, abilities, names, origin stories of these characters, and they would hire different writers for each episode or set of episodes, and they would give a box of cards to the writers. So they were all using the same index, kind of, because they didn't have Wikipedia at the time, for the characters. And they were using the artists who did this set, they were also using their style of art. So it helped create some cohesiveness, even though they're using different writers. Well, when I found that out, I wanted to talk about it on the channel, and they had also announced that Disney Plus was releasing a new animated series called X-Men 97, which was going to pick up where they left off. Well, they got so comfortable with me in the interview process that they ended up sharing information they were not supposed to share. Where episode 1 was going to pick up, how many episodes there were going to be, and when it was going to be released. And 2 days later, I wake up, I've opened up Facebook, and comicbook.com is one of the feeds that pop up, and it shows Erica and Julia's name, and it shows the X-Men 97 logo. And I'm like, oh, well, I know them. I'll read this, And I read it, and it says on Spidey G09, Justin Underwood's YouTube channel. And I'm like, what? And I realized that what they shared, they were not supposed to share, and it broke news. I basically levitated out of bed and floated into the kitchen to my wife, and I'm like, you're not going to believe what just happened. We just broke news for X-Men the Animated Series for Disney Plus on the YouTube channel. And at that point, I was like, okay, you never know who's watching this. So someone at whatever reporting place watched this video, realized that they were sharing stuff that they were not supposed to, just because they were in such a flow of information. We're having such a good time. They didn't do it on purpose. They ended up getting a 900-page word letter from Marvel Studios saying, "Hey, Eric and Julia, you can't be sharing this kind of stuff." That actually endured our relationship even further. We become good friends.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I said, what did that do with y'all's relationship?
Well, what's funny is before I hit record for the interview, I said, "Look, the last thing I want to do is break news here. I just want to be with you. I want to connect. What you guys did in the past with what we're doing now with Marvel cards, and share that story, because I know a lot of us are going to enjoy that there's a connection there, and it makes so much sense. Tremendous amount of people that love the animated series love Marvel cards, and we now know why. They were connected, but they did what happened, and but it ended up being such a beautiful friendship. I've been out to California, been to their place where they live, and had dinner with them and coffee with them and hung out. X-Men the Animated Series, X-Men 97 has just finished season 1. It is the highest rated Marvel production that's ever been put out through Disney Plus. It's an amazing grand slam. I've been texting with them. We're anticipating having them and the new showrunner on the channel at the end of next month.
You got to ask them at that point. We're not breaking news yet.
I tell them, no more breaking news here.
Yeah.
And but yeah, no, it's like, to think that I could connect with my childhood in that kind of way solidifies my belief about creation. Like, you got to be in creation. You got to put something out there that wasn't out there before, and what it creates is much more than you could ever even imagine at times. And then that creates, and then that creates, and it just has this domino effect that's really pretty special. And to your point, at the time that video got watched by whoever watched it, it might have had 300 views. So what?
How many views did it have after the news broke?
It actually got up to like 3,000 views. The problem is it got buried because everybody made content about it after that. Like, if you, at that time, I don't know what happened now, but if you would put my name into the search engine, videos from around, like, in different languages were popping up with people talking about it. And so that's what people ended up consuming primarily, not this 1 hour interview about Marvel cards, but still, from a search engine standpoint, my name popping up that amount of times means that Google and other search engines might put my video up for other videos in the future, because it has that kind of, it's registering in that way.
So we moved through 22.
Mm-hmm.
Now we're in 23.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about where you, were there any other big significant growth parts in 22 other than that?
So 22, big significant growth part was I got a phone call to be an expert when Lala Anthony pulled a 1-of-1 Spider-Man card for her son. Lala Anthony's Carmelo Anthony's ex-wife, and I think she's been on like Real Housewives, but I can't say what she's most known for. I didn't know who she was, to be honest with you. But apparently she's best friends with Kim Kardashian, so she gets lumped into that crowd. I got a call and they said, "Hey, look, we'd like to fly you out to New York. She's going to be opening up these cards. We'd like to have the Marvel card expert there to do it." I pulled up her Instagram account and I was like, "It's not on brand for me." Like it was just really provocative type stuff, and I chose not to do it. My wife said that I was being a little too self-righteous, that I shouldn't have done that.
Well, I think it's good though that you have, because you start off in the very beginning saying that you're going to have some standards going into this, and it sounds like you held true to that. I did
hold true to them. I probably, I don't know. It's such a little bit of a gray area. It's not as black and white as I initially had it in my brain. Like, hey, no, it's just not on brand. It's not marvelous, to your point, as I hold it. And you know what I think I failed to realize at the moment, when they actually did do the unboxing, it was nothing like the content she puts out. I mean, it was in, a bright lit place. Everybody was fully dressed, like it probably would have been fine. But the question is how does it, if they connect to me, then link to their, how does that play out? And, as your community grows, there is a bit of like, okay, who do I let in? Who do I not let in? But how do I still remain in a place that I'm open to what's possible, despite who the other person is or isn't? It's a struggle. So what I did end up doing was let them call me, and so they ended up calling me, and she ended up hitting a really special card, and that ended up on Yahoo News. And so rather than being in the video, I'm just the voice you hear in the background, saying what just happened, and then got linked in that. But when that happened, my wife wanted to share it on Facebook. So this is the first time that, outside of some conversations with friends, that people are going to be aware of the YouTube channel. And I had rebranded Spidey G09, although is my initials. For some people, it was kind of weird to say. So I rebranded to Spidey Hits, and that's been the brand of the channel since spring of 2022. That actually helped push the channel forward quite a bit, in my opinion. From a branding standpoint, anytime you can take two words that are not associated, connect together, and build a brand around it, it's pretty powerful. And that's what began to happen. On top of the fact that I open up a lot of boxes on the channel and pull products. So when I pull a Spider-Man card, it's a Spidey hit. Well, that now I hear a ton of people say that now when they open products.
You didn't by chance trademark that term, did you?
I didn't. I actually did attempt to trademark "Have a Marvelous Day," which is my #1 trademark. But it got rejected because when I sent in the request, I put an exclamation point behind it, and they were like, "Prove where the exclamation point is." And I got busy and never revisited it. But no, I haven't trademarked it. But when Jamie made that post publicly, I knew then, like, the cat's out of the bag locally. More people are going to know about it. People are going to want to ask about it. It's going to be in conversations. And so at that point in time, I began to be a little more vocal about it on Facebook, although I do not post. I post very little on my personal Facebook page that has to do with anything with Marvel or YouTube. If people tag me and stuff that's Marvel or YouTube, I hide it so it doesn't show up in my feed. I want to keep that pretty clean and separate from the Spidey Hit stuff. But that was a big moment, and it has some controversy around it. Some people thought the whole thing was rigged. This Lala Anthony pulling a big card and it ended up on the news. People want to believe that kind of stuff, so they choose to. And but controversy is news. News creates popularity. It drives more people. So things like that happen. Other videos began to be made about me, and that creates more popularity and drives people.
How do you deal with the negative stuff when you get hit with it? Because obviously it's got to happen at some point to where you'll have negative comments, probably some have to assume some hateful stuff will come out from time to time. How do you let that affect you?
The first thing I have to say, as on a scale from what I hear from other YouTubers, I've been really blessed, just to be frank. I think that goes back to just drilling down and focusing on the people that have the content that they want to see. I have received some very personal negative things said about me. I've had people post or tag and say some negative things. I've had even people make some negative content and post it, and it's painful. Your first response, I think, or for me, has been like I just want to like defend, like, no, how could you ever, what do you, like that kind. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? If you engage a fool, you become one.
Yeah.
So deep breath, whatever's going on in that person's life right now that would have them see and hear anything that I'm doing in that way, it's got to be really rough for them. It's got to be tough, right? We're talking about nerdy Marvel cards.
Something from your youth that you still have a passion for.
Yeah.
It's like you said, you got an amazing toy room with the library books intermingled with it.
Right.
You're not trying to recreate something. You're just sharing in the joy of what is.
It is. And what I have realized, I have what I think is a supreme advantage of having Christ in me. And that makes a big difference. I don't know how to get through life any other way. But that's not true for everybody who engages in the content. And this positive thing that they're, why is a 40-year-old still connected to this? Well, because it was the one bright spot in their childhood. So it means even more to them than it does to me. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so it can be very personal, very passionate, and can be very defensive and come off as negative or attacking if I don't celebrate something the way they would celebrate it, because of how it means to them. And so I've just remind myself there's something going on over there that would have them act that way. And they probably need my prayers, my concerns a lot more than me defending my own self. You see what I'm saying?
So, I've known you for quite some time, and you never have been one to ever shy away from your faith. And in many of our conversations, just through natural conversation, faith comes out in it. Have you been able to incorporate any of that into your YouTube channel?
So, the thread of what my content is has it weaved all through it. I have been purposeful not to be over the top with
Sure.
it. In fact, if I were to go live right now on Spidey his channel and say, hey, I'm an ordained minister, there's many people who will go, well, that makes sense now, but I didn't know that, right? In the more longer form podcast shows that I've done, one's called The Marvel Show. It does come out in that show because people ask very probing, intimate questions about how to deal with certain things, and I just say, hey, look, this is going to come from my faith. This is who I am. I have nothing else to offer. So if I'm going to answer the question, this is what it's going to be. But in the kind of edited, more educational, entertaining content, it doesn't come out in that. Outside of the reason I view people as more valuable is because they're made in the image of their creator. Yep. And so that sets that first kind of rule that governs the content.
Sure. Moving into 23. So 22, you're on this like growth plan. I mean, things are really taking off. You're getting connected with a lot of different people. Probably stuff you never thought that this would lead to. I would have to assume you didn't have this grand plan that says I'm going to be talking with people in California and I'm going to have be asked to go for this unboxing with celebrities.
Right.
So moving into 23, business levels off with the mortgage market. I know in real estate for me for 23, things kind of come to a screeching halt on some level. But talk to me about where Marvel and this YouTube channel took for you.
It began to be a bit of an internal conflict. And here's the conflict. The conflict is, February of 2022, we still have interest rates in the 2s and 3s. By August of 2022, they're in the 7s.
Yep.
Now I just knew, I was like, man, now every mortgage professional is going to be a social media star. Every one of them's going to press record, try to make content, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook. Gosh, I don't want to do that. And I'm probably could be one of the best because I'm doing it on a regular basis. It just flows out of the natural course of my week. I don't have to work it up. Like I just do it. Like it's second nature. But man, I don't want to do that for mortgages. I started thinking about my real estate people locally and thinking about the headwind that they were facing. And so I did the exact opposite. I started doing more one-on-one, individual, grind, in-person, in-face, the opposite of anything social media locally from that standpoint. And because of the amount of just effort it takes to get business and close loans right now, I developed something from the YouTube standpoint where I create a Discord. Now, why create a Discord? I told you, I engage, I respond. And that takes time and energy. It takes away, your thought processes, whether you like it or not.
Right.
So I was like, you know what? I have a really strong community of people that I know, love, and trust. And many of these people are actually smarter than me when it comes to the trading card space. So I created the Spidey Hits Discord. And when someone would ask me a question, I go, here's a link to my Discord. In the Discord there are individual channels regarding every type of trading card set. I was like, put your question there. And the community started doing the work of building the community. And that's been really special to see. The community bought into love people, love Marvel cards, keep it marvelous. And they started expressing that. And that helped take pressure off of me from having to be the one doing all the answering and the engaging. And
so you've built this ecosystem now to where people have gotten on your train, away from the closed in, I'm going to hang on really tight, right, to where you have a community working for you in a sense to help you further what you're trying to do.
Yeah. And like they want to, like in the same way that I wanted to have this engagement and this, they want the same thing. And all I did was give them a framework to exist in, to do what it is that they want to do. I mean, I have a friend that loves 90s hologram cards. Well, there's a channel for that, and he is by far the expert that is waiting to answer the question. And so now he has a space that he can respond where he didn't have it before, right? And it's a place where he feels safe to do so.
And it's probably an individual that doesn't want to create his own YouTube channel and be in front of the camera to talk about it.
There's no desire to do that.
But it's tough to do it. It's really tough to be able to turn that camera on and start talking and then send it out to the whole world to be critiqued.
It is. I tell people all the time, they're like, oh, well, you're an influencer. I'm like, look, if you comment on a video, you're an influencer.
Yeah.
People, they may watch the video, but they go to the comments and see what they really want to think.
But, when you're talking about your peers in the mortgage industry wanting to, like, everybody's going to be doing this now, and I'm going to have to compete with everybody. How many are you having to compete with when it comes to the online space?
Well, if you look at mortgage filings in Ouachita Parish, up until this year, we're still dealing with 50% of the filings happening from out-of-town lenders. So there's a tremendous amount of content being put on by lenders who don't physically live here.
But not a lot that's happening in here. Because you know why? Because it's hard.
It is hard.
It's hard to be able to get out there and make it happen. And if you're willing to do it, it can be rewarding, but you got to be, I say the hardest part of putting content out is being consistent with the content. I think anybody can psych themselves up enough just to put something out there, but to be able to be consistent with content, it's tough.
There's a verse in Proverbs that says that in all labor there's profit, but mere talk leads to poverty.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, the Lord just buried that deep in my heart early in my life and say, look, don't talk about it. Everybody has a great idea. Everybody has this or that. Like, just do.
Yeah, just do it.
Just do.
Done is better than none.
I love that. I've never heard that. But to me, the just do is connected with, hey, do you trust me to be the one who actually does the provision? Like, but the way you engage in that trust is to be in the work, to be a part of it, right? And so, as I talk to my girls about this a lot, and there's like this overarching kind of theme for me is that I want to teach my girls how to be creators, because I think as technology eventually catches up, technology is actually kind of lagging at the moment. That's a whole nother conversation I can have with you. It's part of why inflation is where it's at and costs and things, blah, 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 blah. But eventually technology will actually make things easier to some degree. And when it does, and we're not having to do the manual aspect of a lot of this stuff, what are we going to do? And I think those who are in creation, who are true advisors, are really going to have an advantage.
I also believe that had you not been as passionate about Marvel as you are, you would have not have reached the success that you have.
Yeah.
And I believe for a lot of people who want to be creators, I think too many people fall into the trap of society says I should fit into this box. And people are too scared to get outside that box and try to figure out what they need to do. You know, we're going through a change, I think, nationally with education, where it's just been drilled in people's head that it's everybody's got to go to college. Everybody's going to college. I think you can back this statement up. You know, some of the toughest problems of getting people approved to purchase younger people is going to be student loan debt that's out there. And for many of those people that are carrying so much student loan debt, they didn't even graduate.
Right.
They don't even have a degree to go along with it. So I say all to say this, that for those who want to be creators, number one, you got to follow a passion that you have, and you got to be able to commit to go all in on that passion. Although you have not turned this into your full-time career with YouTube, I believe you could if you wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's interesting because the YouTube is the content and it's that part of it, but what people have been willing to pay for, like if money, right? Like YouTube doesn't pay very much, just in case you don't know, unless you're hitting millions of views on a regular basis. We're talking $100 to $300 a month. You know, I get about 40,000, 50,000 views a month, which for me and the space that I'm in is massive. Like my reach is wonderful inside of the Marvel trading card space at the scale that it exists today. But it doesn't pay anything. Now, if I wanted to translate that from a leadership standpoint in the space, like in the operation, creation of, or distribution of trading cards, yeah, I could do that. But that's not what I'm passionate about.
Right.
I'm not passionate about that as a labor, right? I'm very passionate about what it means to own a home because I know the difference it made for me. And I'm going to tell you, it's super serendipitous for me to be in this studio right now because it was right there where Glenda Brown, who was my first mortgage banker, helped me get in my first home,
right?
Which forever will mean the world to me. And that's a natural passion. The enjoyment of trading cards and the Spidey Hits channel is something that was born in me around my brother, and that means a lot to me. I love to be able to connect to that and have others connect back to those positive memories as a childhood, because the world can be pretty hard. It's a tough space. People are struggling. There's a lot of pressure, whether it's financial, social, relational. Like, I want people to be able to stumble into the Spidey Hits channel and leave more full than they arrived. And I want to do that, as I say, in a marvelous way.
Where do you see it going from here?
Man, I don't know. That's an interesting question because
there's been a lot of opportunities that you had that we haven't spoke of, and I'm not going to bring them up. But
I've turned down opportunities. I mean, I've turned down real money for opportunities, but I'm 40, so I'm the reason my world is structured the way it is right now is because I wanted to be committed to being there for my girls until they're out of the house. Ashlyn's going into her senior year, so I see at a minimum another year of that, right? Even the way I've structured my professional life. I mean, there's a reason why I don't have Underwood mortgage and trying to build that, like, because I would be completely distracted from being at home. So
sure.
So there's that aspect of it. And at 40, I don't want to jump into something that if it was like a career move, jump into something that at 46 doesn't exist anymore. You see what I'm saying? So it's it just it doesn't exist in my life for that purpose. For me, this still exists as an additional way to get my creative juices out, which are for some reason more and more and more each day, and to be able to connect relationally. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to tell me a country that I probably couldn't fly in right now and meet somebody that I've connected with, from the YouTube channel. In many of those countries, I could go stay and spend a night with their families. Like, I've made those kind of relationships. I want to keep that. Like, to me, it's made the world really small, and that's, to me, super special. The last part is this. My wife, Jamie, she has a way of pushing me. She said, well, you won't have a ride until you get to hang out with Post Malone. And so that's actually been a secret drive that I've had this whole time to help get that come true. I'm actually pretty close. And if that happens, I might be like, okay, I'm done. Cause I'll have proven to her that I could do that. And she loves Post Malone. And that's when she says I'll have arrived.
That's something to definitely live up to.
Yeah.
I want to kind of end with this. I want to talk about wealth for a minute. Mm-hmm. If you look back 20 years ago, I've been in selling real estate for 18 years. So say 18 to 20 years ago, when you got the job at the guide plant, mm-hmm. making headlights.
Yep.
Would you have ever thought that young Underwood at that time would be doing what you've done today?
No. I mean, not at all. Like, I couldn't even fathom, what it is that I'm doing. I mean, would have never even been on my radar as a plan. And I think the point that I'm hearing in the question for me is like, what is possible out there is much more than we could ever imagine, right? I think being at work, being, we call it the grind, whatever you want to call it, hustle. I don't necessarily hold it quite like that. It's just being who you're created to be every day, give it your all. I want to live a full life every day. I don't really want to leave much left on the table when I go to bed at night. And just being open to, what the Lord has as a possibility. But I think it goes back to just knowing that you matter. Like, you realize that the miracle that you're even here. I mean, the amount of people who never made it out of the womb.
Yeah.
Just to be alive is such a unbelievable blessing. And then I go, okay, Lord, if you created everything, which I believe He did, and you're in control, which I think He is, that means you orchestrated all time and space for this moment right here, for me to be here with Brian. So I might as well be present and give it my all, right? And so I think approaching each day like that, instead of trying to force stuff to happen, you know what I mean? Instead of forcing it, man, probably more than you ever thought was possible will happen.
And that's why I want to it's kind of probably a weird way to get to wealth. But for me, as I get a little bit older, a little bit grayer, perspectives change along the way. And the type of job you and I are in, the career paths that we have, you get to see people's definition of wealth vary substantially. For the young generation that's getting out to make it happen, I would heavily encourage them to think about what wealth is to them. Society tries to push us that wealth is a house with too many bedrooms and overabundance bathrooms, closets the size of an average bedroom, nice cars, boats, toys, all that stuff. That's not wealth. That's stuff.
That's stuff, right?
Wealth is being able to have a full life, surrounded yourself with people who love you, and you get to spend time with them.
Yeah.
So when we look at our youth that want to be YouTubers or streamers for life, I say if that's your passion, go for it.
Go for it, yeah.
Go for it. But go for it because it's your passion, not because you're trying to chase a dollar.
Man, I love it. You're here for someone else. And I think keeping that in mind, like the reason the Lord still has you here is for someone else. I'm not going to improve Justin. Like what the Lord's already done in me is done. Like I can't build and make that better. He does that work. So why am I here? I'm here because for someone else. And it relieves so much pressure from me from having to try to get it right all the time. It's like, no, just go be in action, go do. And then what happens, right? Like
be present, be intentional.
Yeah. It's really pretty special. And then know that the person you're in front of matters and you're there for a reason. I'm going to leave here and go to an appointment. They matter. I'm going to go be present with them. And I have a feeling that that's going to have an impact on their life because there's a good chance I might be the only person who shows up that way today. And to me, that has made a big difference. And when I press record and I have the camera facing at me, like I show up that way too. So that when the person who's there because of trading cards, Marvel specifically, like they have an experience that they matter, right? And man, I want to keep building relationships. If YouTube keeps doing that, then great. If not, then great. That's fine. Like that'll be okay. We'll go on to the next one.
Well, I'm proud to call myself your friend.
Absolutely.
You've definitely, I mean, there's ways that you've impacted my life. When I think of wealth, I think of Justin and his family.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And it's not about the cars you drive or the house you live in.
No, I know that.
You are living out what we should be living out. You're very intentional every time I get to speak with you. For those that say you're too busy, I'm saying you always return my calls. Even if I don't leave a message, you're going to call me back.
If I don't, call the cops. Something's wrong.
So you're not too busy.
No, I want to figure out what it is that gives that aura, and I want to change it because I despise it. I'm like, I'm with you. I'm right here.
I tell people all the time, I always will have time for you as long as we can schedule it out.
Yeah.
You got access to me. We can put it on the schedule. We can make it happen. So, man, thanks for being the person that you are. I consider you a community leader, consider you a friend.
Thank you.
And thanks for, just kind of giving back.
Yeah, same, Brian. Appreciate you. Thank you for having me on your podcast. I've been looking forward to this for a while. I've been patient. I'm like, I know he's going to call. When he does, I can't wait. It'll be great.
Thanks, Justin.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for taking the time to watch or listen to this podcast. We really appreciate your involvement. Please leave us a comment, or even better yet, subscribe to this podcast and hit that notification bell so that you can be alerted for every new episode when it hits.